Martin never imagined that the decisions made in the shadows would carry such a haunting, enduring weight. During the years he lived with Tyrell and Samantha, he always spoke of Kenny with caution, recounting the past as if it were merely a minor chapter, not worth delving into. Yet it was precisely this edited version that nurtured a growing sense of unease within the hearts of the two children. As rumors about the past began to seep into the stifling air of Fairmont Crest, every trace Martin had tried to bury was illuminated by the probing light of suspicion. His greatest fear wasn't the truth about Kenny. It was the fear of losing the trust of the two people he called his reason for living. Kenny's past had always been a forbidden zone, even when Tyrell and Samantha desperately wanted the whole truth. What Martin never had the courage to confess was the unforgivable connection between himself and the death of their biological parents. Years ago, when Martin was still a young man, ambitious, reckless, and easily swept up in misguided decisions, he unwittingly dragged Kenny into a tragic series of events with no way out. At that time, Martin and Kenny were best friends, growing up in a troubled neighborhood, clinging to shared dreams of escaping poverty and becoming more than what society had labeled them. In one ill-fated incident, they became involved in a shady scheme intended to help a woman in distress, none other than Tyrell and Samantha's birth mother. That night, gripped by fear and panic, Martin lost control and accidentally caused her death. Kenny, in a state of shock, helped him cover up the incident instead of calling the police. To erase every trace, they fabricated a story of an accident, abandoning the two children to a life shaped by lies. Racked with guilt, Martin later took it upon himself to adopt Tyrell and Samantha, hoping to make amends for an irreversible loss. Smitty knew nothing of the dark history, assuming Martin was simply a kind man with a heart for orphans. Over the years, Martin lived with quiet torment, terrified that the truth would emerge, helpless beneath the trusting gazes of the children who would eventually grow into hopeful, intelligent young adults. Kenny, meanwhile, couldn't bear the crushing guilt forever. It gnawed at him, eroding his soul, turning him into a shadow of a man on the outskirts of society. Watching Martin's seemingly happy family from afar with a bitter blend of resentment, longing, fear, and a thirst for revenge. Especially as he saw Martin thriving in a life he believed he himself could never reclaim. When Kenny finally returned to Fairmont Crest, every move he made was tinged with inner conflict, torn between exposing the truth for relief and fearing exposure as a co-conspirator. The more Martin tried to protect the truth, the more Kenny used it to apply pressure. He sent letters implying he knew everything, even threatening to reveal the truth to Tyrell and Samantha unless Martin met his increasingly irrational demands. That was why Martin destroyed Kenny's final letter, a letter filled with confession, remorse, and a plea for forgiveness from the children. Martin feared that even a single shard of that vile memory could shatter everything, tearing the family apart, turning his children against him forever, and stripping him of any right to call himself their father. This crushing duality, trying to be a good father while burdened by the weight of his past, gradually pushed Martin to the brink. Fear made him distant from Smitty, irritable with Samantha and Tyrell, creating fissures in their family that no tenderness could mend. Kenny's presence suffocated the household like a storm cloud. Each of his steps was a ghostly echo of that fateful night, dragging Martin closer to the abyss of panic and regret. If this theory were revealed in the coming episodes of Beyond the Gates, it would undoubtedly elevate the show's drama to an entirely new level. Samantha, upon discovering the truth, could spiral into complete emotional collapse, feeling betrayed not only by the father she once idolized, but by the man who taught her love and forgiveness. Tyrell, ever the rational and grounded twin, might spiral into crisis himself, unable to trust anyone, not even Smitty or himself. Kenny, despite his confessions, might still find no peace, because the truth doesn't erase the pain and devastation caused to an entire generation. As for Martin, he would be cornered into a devastating choice: confess everything and beg for forgiveness, or continue the lie to preserve the illusion of a family he had already doomed years ago. Viewers would be drawn deep into a vortex of moral dilemmas, emotional reckoning, and the survival instincts of each character. The truth about Kenny, and the deaths of Tyrell and Samantha's parents, is a ticking time bomb. No one knows when it will explode, but when it does, everything believed to be solid will crumble into ash, leaving behind shattered hearts, haunted faces, and the question: can forgiveness truly save any of them? This direction is both dramatic and logical, grounded firmly in the characters' histories, relationships, and personalities in Beyond the Gates. It opens a path for both psychological and crime-driven storylines of compelling complexity in future episodes. The turning point arrives one rainy night when Samantha, sensitive and forgiving by nature, overhears a heavy exchange between Martin and Smitty. For the first time, she feels the foundation of her trust crack as Martin admits to destroying a letter Kenny had written to her and Tyrell. That letter wasn't just paper. It was Kenny's final testament, a fragile link between past and present. Stunned, Samantha no longer sees her father through the lens of awe. And yet, her instincts as a daughter make her want to protect Martin, even as the tide of doubt rises within her. Tyrell, who prides himself on his strength and logic, takes Smitty's side. Though wounded in ways he cannot name, he senses the quiet sincerity in Smitty's presence. Smitty doesn't offer excuses or explanations. He simply stays by Tyrell's side as the world around him crumbles. For the first time, the twins are deeply divided. Samantha clings to the belief that Martin acted out of a desperate need to protect them, while Tyrell believes only the truth can heal what's been broken. In the days that follow, unease weaves through the household like an unseen current. Glances are exchanged with caution, questions are left unanswered, and every gesture takes on layered meaning. Samantha feels like a stranger in the very family she once believed was unshakable. She doesn't know whether to defend Martin or chase the truth, especially as teasers for Beyond the Gates flood online forums, hinting that everything will soon be revealed. That hope is both a lifeline and a threat. The closer she gets to the truth, the more she fears losing everything she ever loved. Samantha's psychological shift doesn't go unnoticed by Tyrell. Even as young adults, the twins share an invisible bond. A glance is enough to understand each other. Tyrell sees Samantha's inner conflict clearly, but he himself struggles, torn between forgiveness and confrontation. The central question looms: will familial love prevail over betrayal, or is truth the only path worth fighting for? Meanwhile, Martin and Smitty are consumed by dread, aware that as the children grow, the past becomes harder to bury. Kenny, the erased name from their collective memory, remains a ghost haunting Martin. Their past wasn't just a betrayal. It was a friendship destroyed, a witness to Martin's darkest moment, a man who knew too much and was willing to risk everything to leave behind a final imprint on the children's lives. The destroyed letter was a slash through trust, proof that Martin had chosen the easiest route, burying the truth beneath a facade of peace. When Samantha finally realizes that Martin not only hid the truth but manipulated her memories, she begins to question everything she ever believed. At night, she lies awake by the window, the warm yellow light casting shadows of her once heroic father on the walls. She remembers his comforting arms, his encouraging words, but now, they are blurred by the sting of betrayal. Tyrell, meanwhile, starts digging deeper into Kenny's life, chasing remnants of the past, old messages, forgotten photos in dusty albums. The more he searches, the more contradictions he uncovers. The disorientation drives a silent clash between the twins. Samantha withdraws, avoiding both Tyrell and Smitty. She speaks to Martin only in brief, clipped exchanges. Gone are the carefree laughs. Tyrell, in contrast, doubles down, reaching out to Kenny's old acquaintances, unearthing danger in his pursuit of the past. Elsewhere, Martin and Smitty feel the tightening grip of pressure. Martin grows fatigued, distrustful of himself and his past decisions. Smitty tries to be his anchor but feels powerless watching the family crack apart. Sometimes, in the dead of night, he sees Martin standing in the hallway, eyes filled with a sadness that defies language. They both know, once the truth emerges, their family will never be the same. Each passing day thickens the atmosphere like a storm on the brink. Samantha begins to ask herself, should she forgive Martin or confront him to protect herself and Tyrell? She remembers the warmth of a family once whole but grows weary under the weight of secrecy. Tyrell, sensing the growing divide, stands firm in his quest. He believes only truth can break the chains of the past. But the ultimate question remains. If Samantha and Tyrell turn against each other, who will suffer most? Martin and Smitty, burdened by guilt, or the innocent children caught in a storm of lies? Could it be that familial love will drive them to silence, sacrificing truth to protect the fragile remnants of home? Meanwhile, the foreboding sense of an impending reckoning grows stronger. Perhaps a future episode will reveal that Kenny is still alive, having returned under a new identity with undeniable evidence of Martin's past. Maybe Samantha will uncover the truth first, unleashing chaos and pushing the family to its breaking point. Or Tyrell might find the final clue and force everyone to face a choice: forgiveness or total destruction of their once sacred bond. Or maybe a new character will arrive, someone who knew all along what transpired between Martin, Smitty, and Kenny, bringing unheard stories and pulling the entire family into a new spiral of truth, lies, and unrelenting ghosts. Samantha and Tyrell will have to choose: confront those they love most or remain silent, carrying secrets that may never be resolved. Suspense always lingers, with each day a test of patience and trust. That family endures amid pain, waiting, and hope for a brighter future, where perhaps forgiveness may still bloom, or at least where they learn to live with the damage done. And that is what makes Beyond the Gates so achingly powerful. Its relentless pursuit of truth, the fragile hope of reconciliation, and the knowledge that every secret has its reckoning.